let's see, what is the? Oh, okay. So now let's get to the uncomfortable part of our interview. Biden. So here you say Biden administration extends U.S. habit of interfering in other countries' domestic politics. Now it's threatening Israel with the ending of the special relationship between our two nations. As president, my support of Israel will be unconditional. Now, what do you mean when you say unconditional? Because I immediately thought,
let
like,
me
so
say,
if Israel is going to drop a nuclear bomb, I mean, you don't even support America unconditionally. You're against the Iraq war, you're against Libya, you're against right now the Ukraine war. So you didn't support. So what did you mean by that?
I meant the special relationship that we have now, which which Biden was threatening to end if the Israelis did not change a domestic policy about um, having to do with their judicial reform. Now, I want to say this. I am against that judicial reform. Israel has probably, well, not probably, but Israel has the best judiciary in the world. It's better than ours. It is more humane. It is the only country in the world that outright forbids torture, even in the ticking time bomb scenario. It's the only judiciary that's actually specifically addressed the ticking time bomb scenario. So you have a terrorist who you've caught, who you know knows there's a bomb that's going to kill tens of thousands of civilians, and the Israel judiciary has said even in that case you cannot torture him. No other judiciary in the world says that. The Israel judiciary has, there's I think 3 of the 12 Supreme Court justices are Palestinians. There are Palestinian judges all over, as there are legislatures, and it's guaranteed, full participation of Palestinians in the electoral process. There's 1.9 million Palestinians in Israel who vote. They elect legislatures. They're represented in the judiciary, and they can practice freedom of religion. It's the only place in the Mideast where they guarantee protection for gays. There was a pride parade 2 weeks ago in Israel with 150,000 people in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and in Jerusalem. At the same time, in Iran, they were hanging gays from cherry pickers. It's the only place where women have full rights. It's the only place where Palestinians can legally complain about their government with no fear of reprisal. So anywhere else, including the West Bank, if you complain about the extremely corrupt governments in the West Bank or Gaza, you risk your life, and you'll face torture and death. So the judiciary in Israel is unique in the world. It's also said you can't pressure people putting pressure on their family. You can't pressure terrorists in that way at all.
I have a feeling that happens all the time, though. I mean, again,
well,
I'm not an
but you can go to jail for it,
but I'm not right. But I'm not I'm not an expert.
and you can sue people for it.
Okay.
Oh,
so I get your defense of Israel.
Oh yeah, but I'm not, and I'm not saying that I'm not going to oppose, and I'm co-signing, every
So
policy.
you don't mean unconditional?
No, I don't mean, and I mean unconditional, because we give $3.5 billion to Israel every year. Now we give 2.3 billion to Egypt, which has no human rights, and we give $1 billion to Jordan, which has no human rights, and we give 800 million a year to the Palestinian Authority, which uses that money to pay bounties to Palestinians who kill Jews, not government officials, but Jewish civilians. So if you go to Israel and if you kill a Jew anywhere in the world and you're a Palestinian, the Palestinian Authority will pay you money for that, and they will.
I don't know enough to push back on this.
So I know. I think there's this narrative, and particularly on the liberal left, that says that that portrays Israel as a kind of occupying nation sitting on a Palestinian land, and the whole thing is a lie from start to bottom. And let me just tell you a little bit about the history. Israel and Jordan were part of what was called the British Mandate when the Ottoman Empire in 1922, when the Ottoman Empire collapsed after World War I, we went to war. The Palestinians were on the side of the Ottoman Empire against the Allies. The Jews were on our side. There were more Jews in Palestine at that time. But at the end, the Ottoman Empire disappears. And so there's a lot of land that is part of the Ottoman Empire. And the question is, what do you do with that land? Woodrow Wilson and the League of Nations said, what we're going to do is we're going to give it to whoever lives there. Whoever lives on that land now is the sovereign of their own country. Well, they took Palestine, and they said, there's half the people, a little over half are Jews, a little under half are Arabs. So we're going to cut it in two, and we're going to give half, part of the Jews, part of the Arabs. But there was so much anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic bigotry at that time that they gave 4/5 of it to the Arabs and 1/5 to the Jews, just a tiny sliver 9 miles across to the Jews, tiny, tiny little piece of land with their sacred sites that were not Muslim sacred sites ever. So, that's how, that was the original distribution. And then in the 48 war, when Israel got its statehood, they were immediately attacked by by Egypt, Jordan, Syria, all the surrounding countries, and Lebanon, and miraculously beat them off. The Palestinians were on the side of the attackers. In all of those countries, all the Jews were expelled. So all of those countries expelled every Jew in the country and took away something like 27 million square miles of land that were just taken away from them. And those Jews were all sent to Israel. Israel did not do that to the Palestinians in Israel. It allowed them to stay. And then, it's been attacked. It was then attacked in 1967, and it won, but in that land it was attacked, and it took land from its attackers. The Palestinians again were on the losing side, but it took strips of land from the attackers, which is the West Bank, Gaza, Sinai, and the Golan Heights. And then Israel said, look, we want to give it all back, but we're not going to give it back because you can attack us from those parts. We're not going to give it back unless you promise us peace. If you renounce violence against us, if you admit that we have a right to exist, we'll give it back. Egypt said yes. And Syria got the Golan Heights and Sinai, and they got it back. Jordan wouldn't do it. And today you have, the Palestinian Authority, and in Gaza, if you kill a Jew, you get a street named after you. The children are taught from kindergarten that killing Jews is an act of patriotism. And 85% of those countries, people in those countries, when polled, believe that it's okay to kill civilian Jews, and that it's okay, and that Israel has no right to exist, and their purpose is to destroy Israel and to exterminate the Jewish people. Now, Israel, on the other hand, only deliberately attacks military targets. So civilians do get killed, but for example, in Jenin, in the recent battle over Jenin is a bomb factory. It's terrorist bomb factory. But Israel, unlike Russia, which when they have areas like that in Chechnya, or the United States in Iraq, we bomb the whole neighborhood because we're not going to send troops in there who are going to die protecting people.
You're saying Israel does? I know I've covered stories where they bombed schools.
Well, but not
what are you talking about?
never deliberately.
Oh yes.
Oh, in war, listen.
Yes,
war,
that's not true.
Yeah, it is. Israel.
Of course,
the
it's
IDF.
true.
Listen, the IDF. Colonel Camp was one of the top military experts in the world.
I've covered these stories.
Well, I understand, and maybe somebody. I'm saying it's a policy. Of course, in war, stuff happens. And you may have individuals who kill a reporter, who do something like that, but the policy of the Israeli military is always only to attack military targets. Now, of course, that doesn't always happen, but let me tell you this. The politics, the military policy of every one of the surrounding nations and of Gaza and of the West Bank is not to attack military targets, it's to attack individual civilian Jews. That is the target.
Okay.
Oh, and it's the opposite of what Israel
So
does.
let me. So
And by the way,
well,
the
here it is.
3.5 billion that we give to Israel was part of the Tava and Camp David peace agreement. So we said, okay, we're going to contribute to this peace agreement. I'm making these payments, to Israel. That was our part in it. And that was our promise. And, we get a lot for that money. So anyway, I could talk about it a
I
long
know.
time.
So let me I have to push back on you a little bit on that.
I'm
and
happy
then-
to. I'm happy for the opportunity to explain my position.
So here you're talking about how they inside the hospital premises, Israeli military rained down tear gas and bombs. That's there. They also
Well,
use.
yeah, but this is Jenin. Now in Jenin,
you were talking
okay,
about-
in Jenin, you're looking at Jenin here. Not a single civilian died, and the IDF risked lives to go in there and do door-to-door.
But they did
combat.
use. But they also did
yeah,
bomb it. They
Well,
also
but the terror. Listen,
right
they-
with jets, with military jets. They did.
No, but nobody died. The terrorists are put deliberately with the bomb facilities in hospitals or near them or near schools in order to, for that is a deliberate military
Okay.
strategy by them.
I'm the worst. I'm the least informed guy to push back on you on this, right? But I have to try a little. So let me do one more. So here is the Israeli occupation pours cement into the water springs at the El Hira area south of Hebron to block and prevent Palestinians from using their water in agriculture. So we don't have to play it. It's all right.
Yeah,
So that's happening.
and I don't know enough about that, Jimmy, to be able to, address
Okay.
it.
So let's do one more. Here's from Max Blumenthal. He says Israel's apartheid army leveled Sharuk Tower today in Gaza City. I remember doing some interviews there a few years ago after climbing close to a dozen flights during a blackout. It's home to many media offices, which is precisely why it was targeted. And that was a major residential tower in Israel bombed in Gaza, and there was a bunch of middle class families that lived there. So let's watch this. So there it
Yeah,
is.
but you know what?
So that's not going door to door. And then here is Israel forces forcibly expelled a Palestinian family and demolished their home. So if you say that they're all, it sounds like you're saying
Well,
all the
that- no,
Palestinians
but-
are
but
terrorists,
listen,
and there's
the
collective
Israel
punishment.
Supreme Court
Okay.
has said that Israel has a policy that if a facility is used by terrorists, a home, that they can plow into the home. That's a policy. That is a military policy, but they don't kill the people in the home deliberately. And I think that's if you have limited objectives and they're proportional, that sounds proportional to me. Now, in terms of that tower in Gaza,
Mhm.
I would love to research that, which I will do,
Okay.
and find out what the justification. And I love Max Blumenthal, but I do not think he's objective on Israel. I think his reporting on Israel is not it needs to be questioned.
Okay. Well, here's what I would ask. Just like, Peter Hotez ducked you and Joe Rogan, I would love, because Max is the guy to talk to about this, not me. So would you do an interview with Max, because he would be able to talk to you about this way better than I can. I'm really not good at this.
Yeah, I would love to talk to Max.
Yeah, I mean, Max is a great guy. He's an
Yeah.
honest. He's a straight shooter. And so let me just here, these can't all be terrorists, right? And they're and
Well, no.
you can turn it all the way down.
Yeah, like I said, Israel has a policy that if a home is used for terrorist activity, that they plow it under. It's not a great policy, because what happens immediately is that the government of the Palestinian Authority in Gaza immediately pay to rebuild the home. Oh, I don't think it's effective, but I think it's proportional. Yeah, I think it's likely to discourage terrorism. Terrorism means the murders of Jews. It doesn't mean attacking a military target. And that is the objective. Let's kill as many individual Jews as possible. And that's, that's just wrong. And we are subsidizing, they have this whole program called the Play to Slay, or Pay to Slay. If you kill a Jew, you're taken care of for life. If you go to prison, you're paid a salary while you're in prison, and your family is taken care of. And it's, I don't think we should be paying for that.
So I know. So you don't agree that Israel is an apartheid state, even
Not
though
at all.
I know, but it doesn't. Pretty much every human rights organization say it is.
Yeah, but
Yes.
yes,
Okay, and so
yes.
and so
Well,
that's
why aren't they saying that? Why do those same organizations not criticize the killing of gays in Iran and all of these
I
other
think
Arab
they
countries?
do. They
No,
don't.
they don't. Israel last year had more condemnation by the UN official resolutions than all nations combined, more than Myanmar, more than China, more than any other nation. Everybody is signaling out Jews, and I would say that's anti-Semitism. What I say, and I do not believe that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism. I don't co-sign, for Netanyahu or Likud. But if you are leveling criticism without leveling the same criticism about people who are doing much worse things, then the question is, why not? That has to be anti-Semitism. There's no problem criticizing Israel, but applying a different standard to Israel than you used to apply to any other country in the world is anti-Semitism.
Would you agree that Gaza is an open air prison?
Well, I would say that Gaza, that I don't think, listen, Gaza is self-rule, right? Gaza is self-rule. It's not occupied. It's self-rule.
Well, they don't
So,
have freedom of movement.
well,
'Cause that makes it a prison.
why doesn't Jordan open up Jordan to the Palestinians?
I'm not
Why?
smart enough to answer that.
Okay,
I don't
so
know. But I do know that you can't bomb a
what
prison.
Israel has said is, we will give, we don't want to be anywhere near Gaza. Make an agreement that our country has a right to exist. Make an agreement that you will stop killing Jews, that you will stop telling your children to kill Jews. You stop naming streets and stadiums after Jew killers. Do that, make us feel safe, and we'll give you, the two-state solution. That's what they've been saying for 60 years. Prince Bandar, who was the referee in the Camp David Accords, and Ehud Barak offered the Palestinians everything they wanted, including giving them the entire West Bank, plus 97% of the West Bank, plus 3% of Israel to make up for the 3% it was keeping. And Yasser Arafat, in the end, and everybody agreed this, Yasser Arafat simply said he wouldn't negotiate. Prince Bandar, all of the people involved in that, Clinton, etc., all said it was completely Yasser Arafat's fault that they, and by the way, that there was no negotiation. Yasser Arafat would not negotiate. But for 60 years, the Israelis have been trying to negotiate, and nobody will negotiate. The leadership is bad leadership. Yasser Arafat sold $1 billion from his people. He died a billionaire. His wife is a billionaire. Mahmoud Abbas has $800 or $700 million. Oh, and by the way, after the Oslo Accords, the Oslo Accords gave a right of return to the Palestinians. So any Palestinian in Israel, 1.9 million Palestinians, were allowed to return, and they would be given free land and a farm place in the West Bank. And it was expected that hundreds of thousands, they could live under their own country there. It was expected hundreds of thousands of people would take that offer. You know how many did? 4,000. Why is that? Because nobody wants to live under the Palestinian Authority, because they torture people. There's no justice system. They kill you if they don't agree with you. And it's a dictatorship, and it's a kleptocracy. They steal everything. They've stole $1 billion from their people.
I am so, again. I apologize. I have no idea how to push back on you on that. But I just want so you would say. Let me ask you one more question about this. So like I think if you could just anyway. So this, it's you said Wasserman Schultz has not only refused to condemn the over anti-Semitic rhetoric of Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, but she supported Omar's appointment to the Foreign Relations Committee despite Omar's advocacy of a boycott of Israel. Uh, Omar used that platform to issue regular libels against Israel and Jews that include references to Jews and their Benjamins. I won't be lecturing. So when I see that, it's like, oh well, people call you anti-Semitic incorrectly all the time, and it's just, why wouldn't you be more hesitant? Aren't you doing the same thing here that people do to you?
No, I'm not, because I never said anything anti-Semitic. If I and what I what again, and if she was criticizing Israel, that is not anti-Semitism. Everybody has a right to criticize Israel, just like it's an imperfect democracy. The only democracy in the Mideast, but it's an imperfect democracy, just like we are. And people ought to criticize it. But if you're applying a different set of standards to Israel than you are every other country, if you let every other country slide on on human rights abuses, and and I mean, every country in the Mideast is an apartheid state. They don't let Jews live there. They don't let Jews hold office. They don't let Jews into their
Jews
legislature.
live in Iran. There's
Iran.
temples in Iran.
But there's nobody in political office. It's apartheid.
Oh, okay.
Okay, why aren't they all apartheid? They're apartheid against Jews. The Jews let Palestinians. Israel allows Palestinians to vote, allow them to hold political office. They have the same rights as other Israelis. They even have more rights because they can visit the Temple Mount, and Israelis are not allowed to. They serve on the courts. They participate in the democracy. It's the only place in the Mideast where you can practice freedom of religion, where women have rights, where gays have rights, where there's real democracy. And why is she calling that Israel an apartheid state and not saying Jordan, Syria, Egypt, Iran?
So if she did that, you would go, okay, Israel's an apartheid state?
Of course. If she's saying that all of them are apartheid state, that's fine. But if she only says Israel's an apartheid state, that's anti-Semitism. And calling, talking about Israel's and their Benjamins, that's a little sketchy when you say.
So I just aren't you afraid? Because it breaks my heart in a bit, because it's so great to have a peace candidate, someone who tells the truth about the military-industrial complex. No one does that, and you're right about Ukraine, and you're wrong about Russiagate, which led to Ukraine, but you got right about Russiagate, which is a big deal. And when a dummy like me can see it on day one, what Russiagate was.
Yeah, I didn't say that, but I wasn't paying attention to it. I was. Right, you were.
Because I saw
really
where it was
smart
going to go.
about a lot of stuff, so you see it.
And they got
actually,
their war.
What happened to me is I never looked into it. I just, I was taking the narrative from the mainstream media, and just that was it. And then I had dinner one night with Oliver Stone and with his son Sean, and the subject came up, and they pushed back hard, and that's when I thought, oh, okay, I better look into this. And that's when my eyes started opening to Russiagate. So I was, it was I never had any reason to question it.
Mm-hmm.
Your voice on it, is you have to be reading you have to be reading alternative media on that stuff to even be awake to the fact that it was happening. Nobody in the mainstream media was reporting it.
No,
and I commend you for that. So I was a late comer to that.
And they marginalized anybody who told the truth about it, like Bill Binney, the top NSA codebreaker for decades. He was the one who said there's no way that DNC server was hacked by Russia. That didn't happen. It was local. And so I knew from day one that was all made up. Anyway, do you worry that, you're such a staunch defender of Israel it's going to that it'll wreck your peace candidate status. And you're not. Are you for sanctions on Iran? And are you for sanctions on Iran?
Yeah, I don't. What I would say, one of my primary foreign policy objectives is to stop from having a nuclear arms race in the Mideast. Oh, and ultimately, I think that would include, um,
So you don't want other countries to get nukes
no.
because Israel has one.
Well, I don't think I wish Israel didn't have it either. But I hope that we can get to a point where there's peace in the Mideast and that the Israelis can get rid of theirs as well. But I understand if you're a country that's 9 miles across and everybody around you wants to not only kill you, destroy you, but to commit genocide against your people. And it's the stated objective of Iran: commit genocide against all the Jews. And I can understand why you would want a powerful weapon.
I would think you would sympathize with Iran more because
Oh,
the CIA overthrew their government.
Yeah, but I'm not listening.
Just right before
I
they killed
love the Iranian people, and in fact, my campaign staff has a number of Persians on it, and I mean, listen, I think the Iranian people are more like Americans than anybody in the Mideast, and that they share our values more than probably anybody in the Mideast. But the Iranian government, are they trustworthy? No. I think the Iranian government is a dictatorship, and they're dangerous.
There are many temples in Iran.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad you agreed to talk with Max Blumenthal because I'm not equipped, and so I apologize to my audience for not being more equipped on this. And I knew you would know way more about everything about Israel and Palestine than I did going into this, but I had to do my best anyway. Is there anything you wanted to say? Did I not bring up something that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I mean, I could talk to you for a week.
I know.
So I think we had a long.
Well, I really appreciate that your voice. It breaks my heart that you are risking your peace candidacy over Israel, but but your voice talking about the regulatory agencies, talking about the corporate capture of our government, talking about Ukraine, talking about the intelligence, the deep state. It is so necessary, and you're clear on it. You're so I just want to say thanks for doing that. Thanks for your leadership on COVID. And I felt the same. Like how you did with Russiagate. I would do the same thing with you. Like I was just like, oh, everybody says he's a crazy anti-vaxxer. I never thought twice about it. Right? I didn't look into it. And then COVID happened, and then I looked into it. And then now I know that you've actually been a real hero, and just like you were for the environment, and now you're doing it on the behalf of those people, and you're raising issues. And I think everybody should go watch you explain your whole journey. We didn't get to it today, but your whole journey you explained on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I encourage people to go watch that. You took like 35 minutes and you explained how you got involved with looking into vaccine safety, how the parents were begging you, and you did. And once you saw the data, you couldn't, forget it. And so that it was just, and then what is it called? Springwood? Simpsonwood.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that blew my mind when you told. Anyway, everybody should go watch that. We don't have time to get into that today. I was going to go to Rumble and talk for another, but we've already had you in for a long time. So I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming. Kennedy24.com. And August 3rd, you'll have a big press conference about the border crisis, right?
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Tell your wife
thanks
I said
for
hello.
everything you do. I will.
Okay.